Chucky, Annabelle, now the monkey, it seems like toys have been coming to life and trying to kill us for as long as I can remember now, which means it's probably only a matter of time until Tickle Me Elmo gets its own slasher movie at this rate. But until then, The Monkey is the new horror film from director Oz Perkins based on a Stephen King short story, and it's about twin brothers Hal and Bill discovering their father's old toy monkey in the attic, unleashing a series of gruesome deaths that start occurring all around them. So I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't entirely sure how to gauge where my excitement level for this movie was leading up to its release. On the one hand, I have always been a massive fan of the horror genre, but on the flip side, I'm just not someone who has fully bought into Oz Perkins as a director quite yet. I've seen almost everything he's done and have never walked away from one of his movies that impressed or being able to understand what all of the hype is about. If I'm being honest though, this movie does feel like a bit of a departure from his usual work and promotes the gore and laughs the genre can provide rather than a dose of serious scares. And I mean, who am I kidding? If there's any way to win me over, a demonic toy monkey that kills everyone it comes in contact with in the most ridiculous ways possible is probably a pretty good start. So when I sat down to watch this film, all I was really looking for was an entertaining and blood-soaked roller coaster ride, and I'm sad to say that maybe I was right all along and Oz Perkins just doesn't have the juice, because The Monkey is another frustrating mixed bag of a movie. What's interesting about this film is that it's definitely one of those examples of a movie where the actual story at hand comes secondary to everything else. We're not going to put too much weight into the quality of the setup because it's really just a vehicle for getting us to what everyone wants to see in the first place, which is obviously this toy monkey using the most gruesome and satisfying methods in existence to torture its many victims. And I think for a project like this where that's the ultimate goal, I'm okay with that, as long as everything after the first act is consistent in tone and execution, which this movie is definitely not. When you boil it down, it just felt like the film didn't know what it truly wanted to be. Are we dealing with an outrageous comedy, a twisted horror movie, or a family drama? You'd get a different answer to that question every other scene here. And maybe the main issue here lies in the fact that the project is based on a short story and there's just not enough material there for a feature-length film, but every scene just kind of felt stitched together with no consideration for what came before it or what was coming down the pipe later on. Now let's talk a little bit about the performances here, because we have yet another case of an actor pulling double duty in a movie, with Theo James playing this set of twin brothers that the story centers around. He's a guy that I think has always been pretty underrated, and it's good to see him get some more mainstream roles after being really solid in a couple of TV shows like The White Lotus and The Gentleman. But unfortunately, due to the ever-changing tone of his material that he has at his disposal, his performances here come off as pretty confusing despite his best efforts. Who would have thought they'd find a way to make Theo James not have great chemistry with himself? But here we are. There are a good number of other actors involved in this project that you'll probably recognize too, but the vast majority of them kind of end up being glorified cameo appearances more than anything else. The film does have well-performed comedic and dramatic moments, but they're almost always sandwiched between scenes that are actively fighting against themselves when it comes to mood. Now let's talk about the blood and the gore involved in the movie, because that has legitimately become the main selling point of the project at this time, and the ridiculous and creative ways all of these unsuspecting people meet their demise is definitely the strongest area of the entire film. Basically, if you're a Final Destination fan and have ever wondered what it would look like if it was low-key kind of a comedy, you finally have your answer here. And what's cool is that the lead up to the blood and the gore is almost as thrilling as the kill itself, because it ends up becoming a game of figuring out what kind of bizarre catalyst will be unleashed on a mundane object somewhere in the room that will ultimately pulverize the next person on the monkey's shit list. I can't reiterate it enough though, there are some seriously messed up and insane kills sprinkled throughout this movie, which is an aspect that's elevated by experiencing the film with a packed crowd. Overall, guys, The Monkey set out to do one thing and one thing only: give you the most ridiculous kills you've ever seen up on the big screen before, and it definitely makes good on that promise, but pretty much everything else falls by the wayside. The script, the tone, and the performances don't do much to elevate the movie past being a one-time gore-fest experience. The film is genuinely really funny at times, and the themes the story is wrestling with are interesting, but the execution is just not there. Oz Perkins, maybe we're not such a good match, buddy. The Monkey gets a Sully score of 2.5 stars. So that's my review of the latest Stephen King adaptation. What's a horror movie you didn't have high expectations for but ended up being really good? I'm gonna go with The Autopsy of Jane Doe, but let me know in the comments below what you think. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys at the next one.